A mother cheetah sprints across the Kalahari with her dying cub hanging limp in her jaws. Poison racing through his tiny body faster than her legs can carry him. Hyenas close in behind her, a sandstorm brews ahead of her, and instead of running for cover, she heads straight toward a group of humans. What happens next is something no wild animal has ever done. Something so impossible that even seasoned wildlife experts refuse to believe the footage. The sun rose slowly over the Kalahari that morning, as if the desert itself were reluctant to wake. A thin line of gold stretched across the horizon, brushing the dry grasslands with a soft glow that made everything look peaceful from a distance. But beneath a cluster of camel-thorn bushes, where shadows still clung to the earth, nothing felt peaceful at all. Luna stood over her 3-month-old cub, Milo, her body trembling with a kind of fear only a mother could understand. His small frame lay twisted in the dust, legs twitching in uneven spasms. His breaths came in sharp, broken gasps, each one weaker than the last. Luna lowered her head, nuzzling the side of his face, but he barely responded. His eyes fluttered open for a second, then fell shut again, as if even the effort of seeing his mother cost too much strength. That was when she saw it. The 2 tiny puncture marks on his hind leg, almost invisible beneath his spotted fur, but to a mother who knew every inch of her child, they were unmistakable. A snake bite. Fresh. Lethal. And judging by the thin foam at Milo's mouth, the venom was already seizing his small body from the inside. Luna let out a soft, choking sound, half growl, half whimper. She pressed her forehead against Milo's belly, trying to warm him with her own body heat, hoping against everything she knew that it might slow the poison. It didn't. His breaths grew shallower still, little whispers of life disappearing into the morning air. This should have been a morning like any other. A morning when Milo chased beetles, pawed at Luna's tail, and tumbled awkwardly through the grass. He was curious, bold, always the first to crawl out of the den and investigate the world. Even now, in this moment of agony, that same curiosity flickered in the faint, flicking movement of his eyes, seeking her, searching for reassurance she was trying desperately to give. A faint breeze drifted across the plains, carrying with it the distant calls of guinea fowl and the rustling of dry grass. But none of those familiar sounds could drown out Milo's labored breathing, each rattled inhale striking Luna's heart like a blow. If what you're hearing feels impossible to turn away from, hold on for just a moment. If you're still with us, you're part of a remarkable community here at Whispering Hearts, where real stories of extraordinary animal connections come to life. Every subscriber helps us share more heart-touching moments that reveal the power of compassion across species. Don't forget to hit subscribe, because the journey ahead is one you'll feel long after the story ends. Luna lifted her head, scanning the silent plains. She knew the scent of the creature that had attacked Milo. She could still taste the bitterness of snake venom in the air. A southern African pit viper, small but deadly, its strike almost impossible for a cub to escape. The venom worked fast, faster than anything Luna had faced before. She had seen how quickly it could take life. Too quickly. And she knew something else too. Something far more painful. This wasn't the first time she had watched a child of hers fade in her arms. Just the memory made her chest tighten. 7 little bodies. 7 tiny faces she once groomed, carried, protected with every breath in her own lungs. She had lost them to hyenas, to the cruelty of drought, to sickness she couldn't understand or fight. Each loss left a mark deeper than the last, hollowing out pieces of her until she felt like a ghost drifting through the savannah, moving only because Milo and his siblings had brought her back to life. But then, the others had died too, one by one, just weeks earlier. A fever swept the den, leaving Luna helpless as she tried to nudge cold bodies awake. And now, Milo, her last remaining cub, the final piece of her family, was slipping away in the same quiet, merciless way. Luna curled herself around him, her body forming a circle of warmth, her head resting beside his. She chirped softly, a mother's call, gentle and rhythmic, the same sound she had used to soothe him since the day he opened his eyes. For a moment, Milo responded. A tiny sound escaped his throat, so faint it could have been a breath of wind, but then even that faded. The desert felt too still suddenly, too quiet, as if holding its breath with her. Luna nudged Milo's cheek again, harder this time. His head wobbled limply. She nudged him once more, desperate, her movements growing frantic, until he let out a single tiny exhale that barely stirred the dust beneath him. That whisper of air, the soft, fragile sound of a cub fighting for his final breath, was all it took to break something inside her. For a heartbeat, Luna froze. Her ears twitched, her breathing stopped. Everything inside her seemed to collapse inward. Milo was dying, and she was about to lose her 8th child. The weight of that truth pressed so heavily against her chest that she nearly lowered her head in surrender, ready to curl around Milo and let the world disappear. It would be the way of the wild, quiet, inevitable, cruel. She had lived long enough to know nature never hesitated to take what it wanted, but something inside her rebelled. A flicker of instinct far older than fear. A spark of defiance tied not to survival, but to love. Luna lifted her head. Her eyes narrowed, scanning the far reaches of the plain. There, faint, distant, almost invisible in the shimmering morning heat, she spotted the pale shape of a jeep parked near a line of acacia trees. The same jeep she had seen before, the same humans she had watched mend injured animals with gentle hands and strange tools that healed instead of harmed. She remembered the soft murmur of the man's voice, the calm way he moved, the small creature he had saved by pouring water down its beak. And she remembered something else, something she hadn't allowed herself to name until now. Hope, not instinct, not habit, but hope. It rose in her like a quiet flame. Luna bent down and gently, carefully picked Milo up by the scruff of his neck. His body felt limp, frighteningly light. Normally, he would curl his legs toward her, relax into the hold, but now he just hung there. Weak, silent, still. Luna paused. She knew what she was about to do went against everything written into her bones. A wild predator never walked toward humans, never exposed her young, never lowered her guard. But this wasn't instinct anymore. This was a mother choosing the one path left to save her child, even if that path led straight into danger. With Milo dangling from her jaws, Luna stepped out from beneath the camel thorn bushes and began to walk. Slow at first, then faster. Her legs shook, not from exhaustion, but from the enormity of the decision she was making. Behind her, the desert stretched wide and empty. Ahead of her, the jeep waited like a final gamble. With each stride, the weight of fate pressed harder against her, but she didn't stop, because sometimes a mother's love is the only force strong enough to break the rules of nature. The Kalahari morning brightened as Luna moved through the tall grass, Milo hanging limp from her jaws, but with every step she took toward that distant jeep, something inside her stirred, a memory, sharp and painful, as if her own mind were reminding her what it meant to lose a child, and not just one. 7. Long before Milo ever opened his eyes, long before Luna had ever heard his tiny, chirping voice, she had been a younger mother, stronger, more hopeful, untouched by the kind of grief that reshapes an animal from the inside out. She had once believed the world was wide and full of possibility. Back then, she carried herself with the careless grace of a creature who had never lost anything important. But that was before the first litter. She remembered it with painful clarity now. 4 small cubs, each no larger than a handful of desert sand, nestled against her belly in a hidden hollow beneath a fallen marula tree. They had been warm, healthy, wriggling with a life that felt unstoppable. Luna spent every waking moment tending to them, leaving only for the briefest hunts, then racing back with her heart pounding, terrified something might have happened while she was gone. For a while, nothing did. For a while, she believed she was winning, until the day the wind shifted. She hadn't heard them at first. Hyenas move surprisingly quietly when they want to, but she smelled them. That thick, sour scent carried on the breeze. By the time Luna reached the hollow, 2 hyenas were already there, their dark shapes crouched low, their jaws stained with the unmistakable coppery smell of blood. Her cubs never stood a chance. Luna had fought harder than she ever had, but one cheetah alone cannot take down a pair of hungry hyenas. They drag, they pull, they tear, and they laugh as they do it. Luna still remembered the sound, that awful cackling echo that stretched across the plains like cruelty made audible. She managed to save only one, a tiny female she carried away in her teeth as she ran until her lungs burned. But the little one didn't survive the night. Shock or fear, or maybe just the simple heartbreak of losing her siblings. Some wounds are too deep for such small bodies to bear. Luna buried her first litter beneath the shade of the marula, marking each tiny shape with her scent, then walking away with her heart in pieces. She thought nothing could hurt more. But the second litter proved her wrong. 3 healthy cubs that time, 2 males and a female, born during a dry, relentless season when food was scarce and the shade of acacia trees offered little comfort from the heat. They were slow to grow, often thirsty, often tired. Yet Luna did everything she could. She hunted through the night, crossed dangerous territory searching for dew, risked confrontations with jackals just to protect their fragile sleep. And then came the sickness. It started with the female. A fever, a trembling soft whimpers she tried to hide. In 2 days, she was gone. By the 4th day, the brothers followed her, their bodies growing cold before Luna could even understand what had struck them. She stayed beside them for hours, moving between their still forms, grooming them as if the simple act of cleaning their fur might coax life back into them. When she realized nothing would, she nudged each one gently, sliding their small bodies onto her shoulders or between her teeth, carrying them away one by one. Predators never let grief linger. If she didn't move the bodies, she knew other animals would come. So she did what instinct demanded. She carried her children far from the den, placed them in the shelter of a quiet ravine, and sat with them until the sun set and the stars took their place overhead. That night, she didn't sleep. She didn't even try. She lay curled beside the last cub she'd carried, her chest rising and falling in slow, shallow breaths that felt almost foreign to her. The desert around her was silent, respectful, as if the land itself recognized a mother's heartbreak. 7 little lives gone. 7 futures erased before they ever had the chance to run across the grasslands or climb a termite mound or learn the sudden joy of chasing a butterfly. Luna had felt her hope crumble, piece by piece, until all that remained was a single, burning instinct. Protect whatever comes next. Then came Milo's litter. 4 bright, adventurous cubs who seemed to revive something in her that had been lost. They tumbled into the world with more noise than size, chirping constantly, demanding attention, nudging each other awake even before dawn. Milo was the smallest but the boldest, the first to try everything, the first to wander from the safety of the den, the first to peer up at the sky and paw at drifting dust as if he could shape the world with his tiny paws. Luna guarded them with an intensity most cheetahs never needed. She slept lightly, ate quickly, and rarely traveled far. She kept the den spotless, always shifting them when danger neared. For a while, it worked. For a while, she believed she had finally outsmarted the world. But nature doesn't grant favors. Not to cheetahs. The first cub fell sick almost without warning, fatigue that deepened into tremors, then silence. Luna dragged that small body away, the old ritual returning like a cruel shadow of her past. 2 days later, another died, then the third. With each loss, Luna felt her mind sink further into a hollow space where grief and fear lived intertwined. Yet she fought harder than ever for Milo. He was her last spark, her final chance to be what she was made to be. A mother who could raise a child to survive in a world that stole so many so quickly. And now, this morning, she felt time closing in a third time. She felt the familiar dread creep up her spine as she carried Milo's weakening body. She could hear echoes of the past in every faltering breath he took. But something had changed in her since those earlier years, something born from watching the strange humans who moved across the desert with their odd tools and soft voices. She remembered when she saw the man, Ethan, touch an injured jackal without fear. She remembered how he steadied a trembling bird and murmured to it while pouring clear liquid into its beak. She remembered his calm, patient motions as he helped creatures that should have feared him. Luna didn't understand his language, but she understood the intention behind his movements. Most importantly, she understood the outcome. The animals he touched lived, and for the first time in her life, Luna wondered if the world was larger than instinct, larger than the rules her kind had obeyed since the beginning of time, larger than the silent suffering she had carried alone. She tightened her hold on Milo and kept walking. The shadows of 7 lost cubs moved with her, but they no longer held her back. They pushed her forward, urging her toward the jeep, toward the unknown, toward a choice no wild cheetah had ever made. She would not bury an 8th child. Not today. Not if there was any chance, even the smallest, that something beyond nature's laws could save him. And so she walked, the weight of all her losses driving her toward the one impossible hope waiting in the rising sun. The Kalahari is a land of patterns, of winds that shift the grass in repeating waves, of footsteps that carve the same trails day after day, of animals who live and survive by instinct older than memory itself. Luna understood these patterns better than most. She lived them. She relied on them. But a few weeks before this desperate morning, something new entered her world, something that didn't fit into any pattern she'd ever known. At first, she didn't pay attention. A low humming in the air, faint and distant, a shimmer of movement beyond a line of acacia trees. The sound wasn't the deep growl of a predator or the sharp cry of prey. It was strange, unnatural, a tone that made her ears twitch. Luna crouched low, hiding Milo and his siblings behind her. She expected danger, something with claws, something with teeth. But instead, she saw the jeep. It wasn't the first vehicle to cross these plains. Humans sometimes passed through in loud safari trucks that rattled and coughed and scared every animal for half a mile. But this one moved differently. Slower, intentional. Its white frame glinted beneath the sun, marked with a green stripe that caught the light like a river cutting through rock. It stopped near the grove, and Luna waited, frozen in the grass, her heart pounding. Then the doors opened. 2 humans stepped out, creatures that walked awkwardly on 2 legs, always leaning forward like the earth itself pulled them. Luna had never trusted humans. They smelled wrong, moved wrong, lacked the instincts that governed all other creatures of the plains. And yet these 2, something about them felt different. The taller one, a man with sun-browned skin and lines etched deep into his face, carried no weapon. He wore a faded cap, and his walk was steady, patient, as though he'd spent years learning to match the pace of the wilderness. This was Dr. Ethan Cole, though Luna didn't yet know his name, only the quiet strength in his step. Beside him walked a younger woman, Chloe Nguyen. She moved lightly, her dark ponytail swaying behind her. Her hands held a small device, a camera that clicked and chirped softly whenever she lifted it. Luna would later learn that Chloe's camera captured moments most people never saw. wounds, rescues, transformations, and kept them alive for the world. But on that first day, Luna only understood that the two-legged creatures weren't hunting. They weren't stalking. They were tending. A few yards from their jeep lay a Thompson's gazelle, its leg twisted unnaturally in a wire snare, one set by poachers under cover of night. The gazelle trembled in fear as Ethan approached. Luna expected him to leap, to strike, to do what predators did. But he did none of that. Instead, he knelt. His hands moved slowly, gently, loosening the metal trap with small, deliberate motions. He spoke to the gazelle, softly, low, almost soothing. Luna couldn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. It was the same sound she made when grooming her cubs, a sound meant to comfort. The gazelle stopped trembling. Few minutes later, it stood, shakily, uncertain, before darting away into the tall grass. No harm, no blood. Luna remained still long after the jeep left that day. Something inside her shifted, though she didn't yet know what it meant. In the days that followed, the strange pair returned often. Each time, Luna watched from a distance, sometimes with Milo nestled beneath her chest. The wilderness was full of hidden dangers, and she kept her cubs close. But she couldn't stop watching those two-legged creatures. One afternoon, she noticed a movement near a cluster of rocks. Small, unsteady, the kind of movement belonging to something fragile. A young black-backed jackal limped into view, one paw swollen and bleeding from thorns embedded deep in its pads. It tried to stand, whimpered, fell again. Before Luna made sense of the situation, the jeep arrived. Chloe was the first to climb out. She crouched low, speaking in a bright, gentle voice. Ethan followed with a small metal case. The jackal didn't run this time. It only curled into the dust, exhausted. Ethan poured water from a canteen into a shallow dish. Then, with careful hands, he cleaned the wound, removed the thorns, applied something from his kit that made the jackal flinch, but then relax. The small creature licked Ethan's fingertips before hobbling away, its tail giving a grateful twitch. Luna's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. She had never seen kindness look like this. Predators did not heal prey, prey did not approach predators, and no one cared for the injured except their own kind. Yet these humans did. Still, the moment that forever embedded their shapes into Luna's memory came 2 days later. The midday heat shimmered over the plains, bending the horizon in waves. While Luna kept watch from the shade of a camelthorn tree, Milo and his siblings tumbled nearby, their tiny bodies chasing flickering dust. Suddenly, a soft buzzing noise descended from above. Luna jerked her head upward, ready to strike, ready to shield her cubs. A black object hovered in the air like a strange mechanical bird. Chloe's drone. Its wings didn't flap, yet it stayed afloat with uncanny precision. Luna followed its movement, her muscles coiled. She didn't trust things that could fly without making sense. At one point, the drone drifted too low, wobbling in the wind. Milo squeaked and scurried toward Luna, burying his face in her side. Then the drone tilted sharply and crashed into the dirt, not far from Luna's hiding place. Luna braced herself. Any threat to her cubs was met with claws, but instead of acting aggressively, Ethan rushed toward the fallen machine as if it was something delicate. He picked it up carefully and brushed dust from its lenses. Then, astonishingly, he began talking to it, murmuring in the same gentle tone he used on injured animals. Chloe laughed softly beside him and said something Luna didn't recognize, but the tone carried warmth, affection, relief. Luna blinked. These creatures treated everything fragile as though it mattered. They mended, they soothed, they protected, even when it gained them nothing in return. Every instinct in her told her not to trust humans, but instincts were shaped by the past, not the future. And something about these two-legged beings stirred questions in her that instinct alone couldn't answer. During another observation, Luna saw Ethan tend to a bird of prey, a juvenile falcon too weak to fly. He held the trembling bird against his chest, giving it water, drop by drop, whispering in that steady voice. Eventually, the falcon opened its wings, tested the air, and lifted off, disappearing into the sky with a shrill cry that echoed across the plain. Luna watched until it vanished. This was not normal. This was not natural. This was something else, something rare, something valuable. And though she didn't yet understand it, these moments planted a seed inside her, a quiet realization that these humans possessed abilities her kind did not. They could change the outcome of life and death. They could fight against the cruelty of the wilderness. They could heal. But Luna did not seek them. Not yet. She only watched. And with every rescue she witnessed, the impossible question grew stronger. If one of her cubs ever needed saving, could she dare to trust the two-legged creatures? Back then, the answer had been no. But now, with Milo's breaths failing in her jaws and his body growing colder with every step she took, the answer had become the only hope she had left. The desert was warming quickly now, the pale pink of sunrise shifting into the harsh copper of full morning. Luna moved through the grass in a slow, determined rhythm, her jaws clamped gently around Milo's scruff. His body swung lightly with each step, lighter than it should have been, lighter than any healthy cub's ought to be. That unnatural weightlessness frightened her more than anything else. It reminded her how quickly life could slip away. Every few strides, Luna paused to look down at him. His chest rose in shallow tremors, each breath a fragile attempt against the venom tightening inside him. His hind legs dragged limply, his tail no longer twitched, even his whiskers, normally quick to react to the slightest change in wind, hung still. The Kalahari was a brutal teacher. In its endless openness, life and death were not abstract ideas, but companions that followed every creature's footsteps. Most mothers learned quickly. Some cubs were born to survive, and some were not. Nature offered no negotiation, no second chances, no mercy. But Luna had never accepted that, not after losing her first 4 cubs, not after losing the next 3, not after watching each tiny body fall still in her paws while the world continued on, indifferent. Now Milo, the last one, the one she had guarded with every scrap of strength in her, was fading faster than she'd ever seen a cub fade. Faster than sickness, faster than hunger, faster than shock or cold. The snakebite had been sudden, vicious, and entirely beyond her ability to fight. For a moment, the old instinct whispered to her again, hide him, shelter him, keep him close until the end. That was what cheetah mothers had always done. That was what the wild demanded. A dying cub was to be shielded from predators, from vultures, from the scavengers who circled like shadows waiting to claim anything the living left behind. Luna lifted her head, scanning the plains for threats, and there, distant but unmistakable, she spotted movement. Not graceful like a cat, not cautious like a jackal. This movement was jerky, impatient, chaotic. A small pack of brown hyenas weaving between the tall grass, their noses lifted, sniffing the air. They had caught the scent of blood. The venom in Milo's leg had pooled and dried into a dark stain, small but potent enough for hyenas to find. Luna's muscles tightened. She swerved her path to avoid crossing their line of travel, but she knew hyenas didn't need much time. If they picked up the trail, they would follow relentlessly. And if they reached her now, burdened with a dying cub, she wouldn't be fast enough to outrun them. Her ears flicked anxiously. She was running out of time, faster than she could comprehend. Luna moved toward a patch of shade to reassess, placing Milo down just long enough to nuzzle him, hoping for any sign of strength. His eyes cracked open for a heartbeat, finding her face, then closed again. His breathing hitched. A tiny gasp escaped him, so faint Luna felt it more than heard it. She nudged him harder. His paw twitched, then fell back into the dust. A sound rose from Luna's chest, low and desperate. A sound she had made too many times in her life. The sound of a mother preparing to lose her child. But something stopped her from sinking fully into despair. Far across the plain, beyond the acacia groves and the rolling dunes, the sunlight struck a flash of white and green. The jeep, Ethan's jeep, the same strange machine driven by the two humans she'd watched heal animal after animal with their curious tools. The place where she'd seen pain reversed, broken bodies mended, fear soothed into calm. The humans. Luna stared at that glint of metal for a long moment, ears pinned back, tail stiff with uncertainty. Approaching humans was not instinct. It wasn't even disobedience to instinct. It was the opposite of survival. No wild cheetah deliberately walked toward a human, much less while carrying her young. But Luna wasn't just any cheetah. Not anymore. The memories of Ethan kneeling beside wounded creatures came back to her, not as images but as impressions. The gentle press of his hand, the calm steadiness in his voice, the strange objects he carried that seemed to pull suffering out of bodies the way a mother pulled thorns from a cub's paw. And the memory of that little jackal pup licking Ethan's fingertips as, though thanking him, Luna had never forgotten that. Then came the memory of something darker, the drone crash that had startled Milo. Instead of reacting with anger or thoughtless fear, Ethan had picked up the fallen device and murmured to it as if it were alive. Chloe had stood beside him, her voice warm even in her worry. These two-legged beings didn't behave like predators. They didn't behave like scavengers. They behaved like guardians of something, of everything. Luna lowered her head and lifted Milo again. This was no longer a question of instinct. This was a question of love, of hope, of whether she dared to believe the impossible, that the humans she once feared might hold the only key to saving the last piece of her heart. She stepped into the open, exposing herself fully to the plains. The tall grass no longer shielded her. The hyenas could see her if they turned their heads. Any predator could. But she walked anyway, slowly at first, then faster as the urgency built in her body. Her paws pressed into the warm earth, leaving faint prints that trailed behind like a story unfolding in real time. Halfway across the stretch, she felt the eyes of the hyenas shift. A distant cackle pierced the stillness, the kind that rose when scavengers sensed opportunity. Luna picked up speed. Milo bounced slightly with her movement, but no sound came from him. His silence was worse than the hyena's calls. Luna's breathing grew heavier. She sprinted for a few seconds, then slowed. She couldn't risk jolting Milo too violently. Fear clawed at her chest, not fear for herself. That was long gone. Fear for him. Just before she reached the final stretch toward the grove, a gust of wind carried the distant buzz of a drone overhead. Luna froze for a split second, instinct demanding caution, but then she remembered. This buzzing wasn't danger. This buzzing had always meant the two-legged creatures were nearby. The drone hovered, swaying slightly, then adjusted its angle as if focusing on her. She didn't understand machines, but she understood attention. Someone was watching, someone who could help. With a final deep breath, Luna continued forward. She was close enough now to smell the faint trace of humans on the breeze. Metal, cloth, the scent of water stored in containers, the smell of strange herbs and chemicals from Ethan's medical kit. Milo's body twitched once, barely. Luna's hope flared painfully. When she reached the edge of the clearing, she saw the jeep clearly at last. The same white body, the same green stripe, the same open back where Ethan kept his tools. Luna paused. This was the moment where instinct screamed for her to turn around. Run, hide, protect Milo from the unknown. But instinct had already failed her 7 times. Love had not. So she stepped forward, out of the brush, revealing herself fully to the 2 humans at the heart of the clearing, carrying her dying cub in her jaws. And in that moment, without knowing, Luna crossed a boundary no wild cheetah had ever crossed. A boundary that would change everything. The last stretch of Luna's journey began with a silence so complete it made the air feel heavier. The tall grass parted around her in slow waves, her paws landing softly, carefully, as she carried Milo toward the only hope she had left in the world. The jeep, white metal, unnatural, waited at the far edge of the clearing like a distant lighthouse. But between here and there lay a half-mile of open land where anything could go wrong, and something already had. The hyenas had picked up her trail, their distant cackles floated across the plains, riding on the rising heat. Luna stiffened for a heartbeat. She knew those voices too well. She had heard them the morning her first litter was dragged screaming from their den. She had heard them the night she buried 3 of Milo's siblings under cover of darkness. The sound was always the same, eager, hungry, unkind. Her pace quickened. Milo swung gently in her jaws, his body limp but warm enough to keep her moving. His tail dangled without life. His paws curled slightly inward, as though his muscles no longer remembered how to stretch. Luna felt his breath flutter in small, pathetic puffs against her chest, each one weaker than the last. The hyenas called again, closer. Luna cut a sharp path through a patch of yellow grass, moving wide to avoid the shallow hollow where hyenas like to rest at this time of day. Instinct said to hide. Instinct said to crouch low, wait, protect Milo until danger passed. But instinct didn't understand time, not the way Luna did now. Instinct didn't know what venom did to a cub. Instinct didn't know the feeling of a heartbeat fading in her jaws. Milo didn't have the luxury of hiding. She moved faster. Up above, the faint hum of Chloe's drone returned, drifting like a curious insect. Luna's ears twitched. She didn't like the sound, but she needed it. Humans rarely traveled far from their machines. If the drone was near, the jeep was near. And if the jeep was near, Ethan was near. That meant help, or at least the possibility of it. Far behind her, a hyena barked, short, sharp, and triumphant. It had her scent. Luna didn't turn, didn't look, didn't break stride. She only pressed forward, her muscles too tight with fear to tremble. In the distance ahead, the drone dipped suddenly, then steadied again. Someone was watching her. Someone had noticed the spotted shape moving with desperate purpose. They just didn't yet realize why. Luna crested a small rise. From the top, she could see everything. The line of acacia trees, the pale dirt clearing, the jeep parked half in shadow. A figure moved beside it, tall, broad-shouldered, hat pulled low. Ethan. She recognized the shape instantly. He bent over something on the tailgate, arranging metal tools she'd seen him use so many times before. Her chest tightened. She was close now, but the hyenas were closer. They fanned out into 3 shapes, dark brown against the pale grass. Luna felt their hunger lock onto her, a pull like gravity. She veered left, forcing them to adjust. Her paws landed harder. The strain of her speed made Milo bounce slightly, drawing a tiny, broken gasp from his small chest. She slowed instantly. She couldn't risk jarring him, couldn't risk the final thread of life breaking. Every choice she made twisted around him now. The open ground grew wider as the grass thinned. Luna's breath came rougher, harsher. She wasn't panting from the run. Cheetahs were built for speed. She was panting from fear. Raw, primal fear, the kind that swallowed all thought except one. Save him. The hyenas quickened. They'd seen her now. She heard them accelerating, their feet brushing dry earth in eager, scrambling rhythm. Luna didn't turn. She didn't need to. She could feel them. 3 bodies gaining ground, closing the distance, following her through smell and sound like arrows shot from living bows. She reached the edge of the clearing and halted for a half-breath. The jeep was only 30 yards away. Ethan's head lifted. He saw her. Not just a cheetah carrying her cub. He froze, stunned. Chloe, crouched beside a case of supplies, looked up as well. Her hand flew to her mouth. She whispered something urgent. Luna couldn't understand the words, but she felt the shift in the air. Humans were alert now, focused, watching. Luna stepped forward. 10 more yards, then 20. Milo exhaled, a thin, trembling wheeze, and Luna nearly collapsed beneath the pain of it. She set him down gently on the dirt, nudging his side with her muzzle. His body barely moved. His eyes were half open, unfocused. She chirped softly, but he didn't respond. Behind her, the hyenas growled. One broke into a trot. Ethan reacted instantly. He grabbed a flare from the jeep, ignited it with a sharp twist, and hurled the flaming stick toward the advancing shapes. It landed in the grass, hissing and spewing bright red sparks. The hyenas skidded to a stop, confused, snarling. Chloe rushed to grab another flare. The momentary distraction gave Luna a sliver of safety. She stepped forward again, leaving Milo on the ground between her and the jeep. Her every instinct screamed to protect him, to shield him with her body, but she forced herself still, forced herself to do the unthinkable. She looked at Ethan. The way she held her body wasn't threatening, it was pleading, her head low, her tail down, her eyes fixed on his face with a desperate, burning intelligence. Ethan slowly stepped toward Milo. Luna didn't move, not forward, not backward, not even when Chloe approached behind him. The hyenas spat and paced in nervous circles, wary of the flares. The air smelled of smoke, fear, and dust. The sky buzzed faintly as the drone hovered overhead, but in the clearing, everything narrowed into a single, impossible moment. A wild cheetah mother, trusting a human with her dying child. Ethan knelt by Milo, lifting the small cub with careful hands. His face tightened as he examined the limp body. Luna's ears flattened, but she didn't growl. She only leaned closer, her nose inches from Milo's fur, as if confirming he was still there, still alive. Barely. Ethan whispered something under his breath, words Luna didn't know, but she felt the urgency behind them, felt the recognition, felt the connection. Chloe backed away slowly, giving him space. The hyenas retreated farther, uneasy at the continued flare smoke. The clearing held a fragile, trembling peace. Luna watched Ethan lift Milo and carry him toward the jeep. She didn't breathe. She didn't blink. The world held itself still as one truth settled over the Kalahari like a new law. Luna had crossed the final boundary, and a choice made out of love stronger than fear was about to change everything she believed about the wild. Ethan had treated injured wildlife for over 15 years, but nothing, not a single rescue across deserts, mountains, or forests, had prepared him for the sight now unfolding before him. A wild cheetah mother stood only a few feet away, her muscles trembling, her tail low, her breath ragged with fear and determination. Between them lay Milo, the tiny cub she had carried half a mile across dangerous ground. The cub's sides rose and fell with such fragile effort that Ethan felt his own chest tighten in response. He didn't dare waste a moment. "Chloe," he said quietly, not taking his eyes off Milo. "Get the med kit, the big one." Chloe moved immediately. She had seen desperation in animals before, but never like this. Never from a mother who chose to walk into human territory on purpose. She grabbed the large black case, flipped open the metal clasps, and laid it on the tailgate. Bottles rattled. Needles shimmered dully under the sun. The portable heart monitor beeped faintly as she powered it on. Meanwhile, Ethan lifted Milo onto a folded wool blanket, his hands steady, but his heartbeat anything but calm. Venomous bites were time-sensitive, and this cub was already far too still. "Come on, little guy," Ethan murmured, his voice low and steady. "Stay with us." Luna responded with a soft chirp, the same sound she used to comfort her cubs. Her golden eyes never left Milo, not for a second. Every muscle in her body held a trembling readiness, as if she were fighting the instinct to snatch him back the moment anyone touched him. Ethan scrutinized the bite wound, 2 clean puncture marks, swelling, discoloration spreading quickly. It was snake venom and not the mild kind. It had to be a southern African pit viper, fast-acting, brutal, sometimes fatal even for adult animals. Milo didn't have long. Ethan forced down a wave of panic. He had lived through venom before, the kind that steals life too fast, too quietly. His sister Emily's face flashed in his mind, pale and frightened in that Florida hospital bed all those years ago. He pushed the memory aside with effort, but not entirely. That loss was why he did this work. Why he carried anti-venom even in regions where other vets argued it wasn't strictly necessary. He wasn't going to lose another child to venom. Not today. "Chloe, pull up the dosage chart for a cub this size," he instructed. "I'm on it," she said, swiping quickly on her tablet. After a moment, "Found it. He can only take a tiny amount. Anything more might shock his system." "Right." Ethan had already prepared a syringe, his fingers moving with practiced precision. He drew in the yellowish anti-venom, flicked the barrel, checked the dosage twice. He knelt beside Milo, touched the cub's side lightly, and felt the faint quiver of a heartbeat. Weak, fading. He exhaled, steadying his voice. "Hang on, buddy." When the needle touched Milo's skin, Luna tensed. Her body lowered, her ears flattened, her eyes sharpened into something fierce and haunted. But she didn't lunge, didn't growl, didn't retreat. She only leaned in closer, as if needing to see everything Ethan did. "I know," Ethan whispered to her unusually, almost without thinking. "I know you're scared, but I'm trying to help him." Something in his tone settled Luna's trembling. She didn't relax, but she didn't intervene either. Chloe monitored the heart rate as Ethan injected the antivenom. The beeping was dangerously slow, uneven. Ethan wrapped Milo in a thermal blanket. The cub's breathing grew even more faint, barely stirring the air. Then the wind shifted. A gust carried a mix of dust and tension through the clearing, and with it came the unmistakable distant cackling of hyenas. They hadn't given up. Chloe swallowed hard. "They're circling back." Ethan stood, scanning the distance. The flares kept the hyenas at bay for now, but the smoke was thinning. The predators prowled just beyond the grass line, their silhouettes moving with predatory intent. "We need a perimeter," Ethan said. "Light more flares. Keep them back." Chloe grabbed 2 more, striking them to life with a hiss of sparks. Luna let out a low growl, not directed at the humans, but toward the hyenas gathering strength beyond the haze. Her fear for Milo shifted into something else. Protectiveness, sharp and immediate. Ethan returned his attention to the cub. The anti-venom needed time, and time was the one thing Milo didn't have much of. Ethan checked the monitor again. The heartbeat flickered irregularly. The cub's tiny paws twitched once, then went still. "Come on," Ethan urged quietly. "Your mom fought to get you here. Fight with her." The wind whipped sand across the clearing. Chloe's drone buzzed overhead, maintaining a watchful eye. The landscape around them grew hazy, the early signs of a mild sandstorm brewing on the horizon, as if the land itself wanted to test their resolve. Minutes stretched like hours. Milo's breathing stuttered in uneven rhythms. His heartbeat dipped dangerously. Luna chirped, then paced a short circle, her anxiety evident in every motion. She nudged Ethan lightly with her head. Once, twice, just enough to communicate without crossing into aggression. "Easy," he said softly, meeting her eyes. "I'm right here." The monitor beeped again, a little stronger. Chloe leaned in, eyes wide. "Ethan, look." Milo's paws twitched, not from the venom's grip, but with the smallest hint of movement returning. His chest rose a little deeper. His tail flicked weakly beneath the blanket. Luna froze. Then she lowered her head until her nose brushed Milo's cheek. The cub responded with a tiny tremor, barely noticeable, but noticeable enough. "He's responding," Ethan breathed. Relief washed across his face, softening the lines etched there by years of fieldwork and loss. But the respite didn't last. The hyenas, emboldened by the fading flare smoke, crept closer again. Chloe lit a final flare, tossing it farther into the grass. The predators hesitated, snarling as their shadows stretched long across the clearing. Luna stepped forward, placing herself squarely between Ethan, Milo, and the oncoming hyenas. Her growl rippled across the dry air, a warning carved from raw survival and a mother's love. The hyenas paused, their cackles wavered, and for one rare moment, they backed away. Ethan watched her with awe. "You're incredible," he whispered. The storm clouds in the distance rolled closer, dimming the sun and casting the clearing in a strange twilight glow. The air thickened. Milo's heartbeat strengthened another notch. Chloe exhaled shakily. "We're not out of danger," Ethan said quietly. "But he's fighting." Luna pressed close, her eyes fixed on her cub. Her entire body leaned toward him in a gesture of devotion so pure it dissolved every boundary between species. The land, the predators, the venom, everything seemed to pause. In that fragile moment, something extraordinary had begun to take shape. Not just a rescue, not just survival. A partnership, unlikely, impossible, yet undeniably real, between a desperate mother and a man determined not to repeat the tragedies of his past. And for the first time since Milo collapsed beneath that camelthorn bush, hope felt stronger than fear. For most of the night, the small clearing in the Kalahari felt like a fragile island suspended between danger and hope. The mild sandstorm had passed, leaving behind a hush that settled across the land like a blanket. Luna never left Milo's side, not even when Ethan needed space to adjust the monitor or check the cub's temperature. She paced, hovered, circled, then returned to press her nose against Milo's cheek as if reminding him she was still there. Hours earlier, she had brought her dying cub to the two-legged creatures with nothing left to lose. But now, watching the faint rise and fall of Milo's tiny chest, the air around her felt different. Not safe, nothing in the wild was ever safe, but possible. For the first time since sunrise, possibility lived in the space between breaths. Just before dawn, as a faint purple tint touched the horizon, Milo stirred. At first, it was so subtle Ethan thought he imagined it. A twitch of the paw, a tiny jerk of the tail, then Milo's eyelids fluttered, slowly, heavily. A shallow breath pulled deeper into his lungs. His claws flexed with a weak attempt to stretch. "Easy, easy, little guy," Ethan whispered, leaning in. Luna's entire body snapped still. Her ears shot forward, her whiskers quivered. She lowered her face to Milo and released a rapid series of soft chirps, the same sound she used on the day her litter first opened their eyes. Milo responded with a faint squeak, thin but real. "He's waking," Chloe breathed, astonished. "He's really waking up." Ethan felt relief crash through him so hard his hands trembled. For a flash of a moment, he had to turn away, swallowing down the tightness in his throat. Not here. Not in front of Chloe. Certainly not in front of Luna, a mother who had already lost too much. But in that moment, just a heartbeat long, he felt Emily beside him. Not as a memory creeping through the edges of grief, but as something warm, guiding. The child he couldn't save long ago had led him to save another today. He blinked hard and returned to Milo. The cub lifted his head a few inches off the blanket, wobbling slightly before it fell back. His breathing steadied into something more rhythmic, less frantic. The venom had stopped advancing. His body, small and fragile as it was, had begun to fight back. Luna nudged him with her nose, grooming him in fast, frantic motions, her purr rumbling like distant thunder. The moment was tender, quiet, beautiful. Then engines broke the silence. One, then another. A line of dust rose on the horizon, illuminated by the first orange streaks of sunrise. Chloe froze with the monitor wires in her hands. Ethan stiffened. Luna's head whipped toward the sound, her body shifting from relief back into alarm. Vehicles. More humans. Ethan cursed under his breath. It's the field team. Chloe looked stricken. Already? They weren't supposed to check this region until next week. They must have seen the drone feed, Ethan said. Or the flare signatures. Luna took a step closer to Milo, her muscles coiling defensively. She recognized engines. They always meant intrusion. Her tail twitched, her ears flattened, her eyes fixed on the approaching vehicles with warning. Ethan placed himself between her and the noise. Easy, girl. It's okay. But Luna didn't believe him. Her instincts flared, sharpened by years of loss. Too many new scents, new sounds, new threats. And her cub had just come back from the edge of death. She wasn't about to let him be taken again. The first jeep rolled into the clearing. Then the second. Dust swirled around the tires. Doors opened. 4 people climbed out, followed by another figure, a woman in a khaki uniform wearing dark sunglasses and a hard expression. Karen Miller, Regional Director of Kalahari Wildlife Management. Behind her, carrying a case and several clipboards, came Jamal Brooks, the team's lead field ecologist. Karen took one look at the scene. Ethan kneeling beside a recovering cheetah cub. Medical equipment spread across the tailgate. Luna standing not 10 feet from him, and her jaw tightened. "Well," she said flatly, "this is a problem." Chloe stepped forward. "Ma'am, please listen." "I don't want excuses," Karen interrupted. "I want to know why a wild predator is inside a human medical perimeter, why a cub is being handled without authorization, and why our team received drone footage of a cheetah walking toward you like a domesticated house cat." "Because she brought him to us," Chloe said, voice rising with emotion. "He was dying. She trusted Ethan." Karen scoffed. "Wild animals don't trust humans. They react out of fear and instinct." "Nothing more." "Not this time," Ethan said quietly. Karen looked at him with the exasperation of someone used to being challenged but unwilling to consider being wrong. "Ethan, you know the protocols. Extended proximity can create dependency. Interference at this level could jeopardize future rewilding efforts." "We didn't interfere," Ethan said. "She came to us." "Which is the problem?" Karen shot back. "You've blurred the boundary." Jamal, who had been observing silently until now, stepped closer. His gaze wasn't on Ethan, it was on Luna. He studied her posture, her ears, her tail, her breathing. Then he whispered, almost reverently, "Karen, look at her." Luna wasn't acting like a cornered predator. She wasn't snarling or retreating or posturing. She stood near Ethan, not by chance, but deliberately. Her body angled so she could protect both Milo and the human who had saved him. Her tail flicked nervously, but not toward him. Her focus was on Karen's team. She saw them as the threat, not the humans who helped her son. "This is unprecedented," Jamal murmured. "I've never seen voluntary proximity like this. This isn't fear, it's alignment." Karen frowned. Don't romanticize it, Jamal. She's a wild animal. But she couldn't ignore it. None of them could. The moment grew sharper when Milo whimpered. A small, tired cry. Immediately, Luna moved, stepping closer to Ethan, her shoulder brushing his knee, her body placed squarely between Milo and the newcomers. Karen's eyes widened slightly. "She's using you as cover," she said quietly. "Not cover," Jamal corrected. "As protection." Ethan rested a hand gently on Milo's back to keep him warm. Luna watched the gesture closely, then returned her gaze to the field team with unmistakable tension. "This isn't dependency," Jamal continued. "This is a mother choosing the safest ally she has." Karen exhaled sharply, the conflict warring inside her, visible even behind her sunglasses. Duty versus discovery. Protocol versus phenomena. "This can't continue," she said finally. "We need to separate them, get the cub to the facility, re-establish natural boundaries." The moment the words left her mouth, Milo whimpered again, and Luna responded instantly, stepping closer to Ethan instead of away. The message was unmistakable. If they forced separation, she would resist. Ethan met Karen's stare. "If you take him now, she'll panic. She could hurt herself, or him, or your team." Jamal nodded. "She needs consistency until the cub is stable." Karen hesitated. Around them, the sun climbed higher, lighting the clearing in a warm glow. The hyenas had retreated. The air was calm. Milo's heartbeat, though still fragile, was steady. But the real miracle was standing over him, a mother who had crossed a boundary older than civilization, now refusing to let anyone break the trust she had chosen. Karen finally sighed, lowering her clipboard. "Fine, temporary observation only. But this isn't permanent." Ethan nodded, relief washing over him. Luna chirped softly at Milo, brushing her cheek against him, her body relaxing by the smallest degree. But as Ethan looked at Luna, really looked, he understood something Karen did not. Nothing about this was temporary. Something had shifted in the world today. Something that couldn't be undone. The morning sun climbed higher, stretching long ribbons of gold across the Kalahari as the final tension of the previous night slowly unwound. Milo was alive. Weak, exhausted, but alive. His breathing had steadied into a soft rhythm, and his paws twitched now and then as if he were dreaming. Luna hovered over him with the quiet intensity of a mother who had walked through hell and somehow returned with her child in her jaws. Yet the clearing was not calm. Karen Miller stood stiffly beside her vehicle, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin, disapproving line. The rest of the field team gathered behind her, whispering, taking notes, stealing glances at Luna as though she were a living paradox. Jamal Brooks knelt a few feet away, observing Milo's breaths, sketching the angle of Luna's posture, trying to capture the significance of every detail. Ethan stayed kneeling beside Milo, one hand lightly resting on the cub's back. He didn't dare move unless Luna allowed it. And she did. Every few seconds, she glanced at him, not aggressively, not fearfully, but with a strange, protective awareness, as though she understood that her cub's fragile heartbeat had survived the night because of this human. Chloe filmed quietly from a distance, her eyes wide with awe. Every so often, she wiped her cheeks. She wasn't sure when she had started crying, and she didn't care. Some stories deserved tears, but Karen was not moved. Or perhaps she was, and simply refused to admit it. "This can't set a precedent," Karen said at last, her voice flat and clipped. "If we allow extended human contact, it compromises the cheetah's natural instincts. We risk imprinting. We risk destabilizing their behavior. We risk—" "Karen," Jamal interrupted gently. "With respect, the precedent has already been set. By her." He gestured to Luna. Karen hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, but enough for Ethan to see the crack in her authority. She opened her mouth to speak, but Ethan rose to his feet slowly before she could. "Karen," he said, voice steady but resolute. "You saw what happened. Milo wouldn't have survived 10 more minutes. She carried him to us. Through hyena territory, through open ground, she risked everything to reach the one thing she believed could save him." Karen exhaled sharply, as though frustrated by the truth itself. Animals don't make calculated choices like that. Ethan shook his head. "She did," Chloe chimed in quietly, "and we all saw it." For a moment, the only sound was Milo's soft breathing and the faint buzz of the drone hovering above. Karen paced slowly, boots crunching in the dirt. She stopped in front of Luna. The cheetah tensed, muscles coiled, tail flicking. Karen didn't step closer. Instead, she whispered, almost unwillingly, "This is not normal behavior." Jamal stepped beside her. "Maybe it's time we stop expecting everything in the wild to fit the patterns we created decades ago." Karen looked at him. "Protocols exist for a reason, and so do miracles," Jamal replied. The word hung in the air, strange and fragile. Luna nuzzled Milo again, grooming the fur on his neck. The cub lifted his head briefly, blinking slowly as if adjusting to the light. Then, with a soft chirp, he reached out a paw, tiny, unsteady, and placed it against Ethan's wrist. Chloe gasped out loud. Jamal whispered, "My God." Even Karen stepped back, startled, but Luna didn't react with anger. She didn't pull Milo away. She didn't growl. She simply watched, close, protective, but calm, as if she were allowing it. Ethan knelt again, stunned by the trust resting in that small, trembling paw. "Hey, little guy," he murmured, voice thick with quiet emotion. "You're tougher than you look." Milo blinked once, then settled down beside his mother, his body finally relaxing. Karen rubbed her forehead. For the first time since arriving, she seemed uncertain. Human authority held little weight here, because the wild itself had shifted. "We need a plan," she said softly. It wasn't a command now. It was an acknowledgement, a surrender, however small. Jamal nodded. "A plan that respects what's happened, what is happening." "We can't separate them," Chloe added. "Not yet. Not when he just survived the impossible." Karen shot her a look. "I'm not suggesting we snatch the cub and drive away." Chloe raised an eyebrow. "Good, because she'd follow you." Everyone looked at Luna. There was no doubt in anyone's mind. Chloe was right. Karen clasped her hands behind her back, staring at the unusual scene before her, a mother cheetah guarding her cub, and the human she had chosen as ally. Finally, she sighed. "All right, we'll establish a temporary observation perimeter. You may continue treatment, Ethan. But after that, we reassess." Ethan nodded. "That's all I ask." Chloe smiled with relief. Jamal let out a low laugh. "I can't believe I'm witnessing this." Luna lowered her head beside Milo, keeping her body curled gently around his small form. The breeze carried a soft warmth as the Kalahari sun broke fully across the sky, illuminating the clearing in a golden glow. Ethan watched them, mother and cub, fur brushing fur, then glanced around at the team. No one spoke. For a long moment, the only sound was the soft rustle of grass and the rhythmic beeps of the heart monitor. He knelt beside Luna again, slow, respectful. "You did it," he whispered. "You brought him through the night." Luna blinked at him, her amber eyes calm in a way Ethan had never seen in a wild predator. Not fear, not submission, not confusion, understanding, and something deeper. Chloe whispered behind him, voice trembling, "Ethan, do you realize what this is?" He swallowed. "Yeah, I do." Jamal stepped closer, unable to tear his gaze away. "This changes everything we know about interspecies behavior." Karen didn't argue this time, because she had seen it too. Luna shifted her weight just slightly, enough to rest her forehead against Milo's back, enough to signal the end of her exhaustion. She was still alert, still vigilant, but the raw panic of the night had melted into something softer, something steadier. Trust, not in the humans as a whole. Just in Ethan, just in the one who stayed when death hovered only inches away. Milo chirped weakly and nudged his mother. She answered with a soft, rumbling purr, low, steady, full of relief. The sun warmed them both. Ethan closed his eyes and let out a breath he'd been holding since yesterday morning. The Kalahari didn't often give second chances. But today, it had. And not through luck or instinct or chance. Through choice. Luna had chosen to cross a line no wild animal had crossed before. Not out of desperation alone, but out of love, powerful enough to override 1,000 years of caution. Ethan looked at Karen, then at Chloe, then at Luna and Milo, and he knew something profound had shifted in the world. Not just a rescue, not just survival. A bridge built not by science or training, but by a mother's courage and a healer's grief. Today, the wild had changed its shape, and none of them, human or cheetah, would ever forget it.